Hey guys, Kim here. So today's video is probably not going to interest about 98% of you, but there was enough people that commented saying they wanted to hear about this. So I'm gonna do the video. Hopefully it can help someone. I know when I was going through my infertility and trying to conceive, these kind of videos were really helpful to me, especially those that ended in a result of pregnancy. So if this doesn't interest you, just click away, and I promise some more food recipe videos very soon. But for those of you that are interested in this, maybe you're going through it, maybe you're thinking about going through it, or you have gone through it, I'm hoping that this can kind of help. And this is just my journey or my story of my infertility issues and trying to get pregnant. And luckily for me, that ended in a positive pregnancy. So I am now almost 27 weeks pregnant. Everything is going wonderfully and I couldn't be happier. So I'll try to make this as quick as possible, but there was lots of little things that I went through. So I don't know, it might be kind of long. So maybe get yourself a snack or a cup of coffee. But to start, I never had regular periods, first of all. And I kind of knew that that was going to be an issue when I wanted to become pregnant, because obviously you need to have a period to get pregnant. So right after Jim and I got married, we pretty much decided, we should at least, let's start to try to have kids right away. If it happens right away, great. And, let's just go for it. But I knew I wasn't having my regular period, so I talked to my gynecologist and said, my husband and I want to have kids soon. I don't get regular periods. What can we do? And they did a couple little tests and pretty much right away referred me to RHS, which is reproductive health specialists. And just like the name suggests, they specialize in reproductive health. So dealing with infertility and all of the different things that you can do in order to try to get pregnant. So as soon as I went there, they did all kinds of tests, full workup, blood work. They shot dye through my fallopian tubes to make sure they worked. They checked my ovaries. They did an MRI to make sure my brain was communicating with the rest of my body. And of course, they checked Jim too. And they pretty much found out that everything was working fine with me, and they weren't exactly sure why I wasn't able to get a period. And they basically diagnosed me with PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. I kind of feel like that's something a lot of people get diagnosed with just when they don't really know exactly what's wrong with you. Most people that have PCOS are a little bit overweight, and I am obviously not. So anyways, that's what they diagnosed me with. And we decided to start with taking a pill called Clomid, which was going to make me ovulate, because I wasn't ovulating at all. And that is something you need to do, obviously, to get pregnant. So first they started me on a pill called Provera, and that made me get a period, which was super painful. The most cramping, miserable, achy, awful medication. But it did get me a period, and then I started taking the Clomid, which was supposed to make me ovulate. But in my case, it didn't work. So I was taking the over-the-counter ovulation kits, and then whenever I would get a positive, I was supposed to go in, they would do some blood work, and then we would do what you need to do to get pregnant. But the Clomid just didn't work for me. I did not ovulate at all. We tried it 6 different times, so 6 cycles, and each cycle is a month. That's your menstrual cycle. It lasts for a month, the whole cycle. So we tried that 6 times, and that was 6 months. They said, okay, we've exhausted this. It's obviously not working on you. Let's try a pill called letrozole. Very similar. It's basically a hormone. And they said sometimes this just works with people that Clomid doesn't work for. So we tried that for, I think, 5 cycles, so 5 months. And again, it just didn't work. I just was not ovulating at all. And they weren't really sure why. They were still doing some other tests. I was testing my blood work and making sure everything was fine, but it just didn't work. So I was starting to get pretty discouraged. So we're going on about a year now. And it just made me feel kind of like less of a woman. That's something that your body's supposed to be able to do very naturally. You're supposed to be able to get pregnant and have a baby naturally on your own. And here I am taking all these pills, all these hormones, feeling like physical crap. And I just didn't understand why it wasn't working. And they really didn't seem to understand why it wasn't working either. So we decided we were going to start injections. And I do have a couple little things to show you here. I have some of the medications left over. But before I could start the injections, they wanted me to gain some weight. They did not think that my low weight was at all hindering me getting pregnant. They said it would have nothing to do with, you know, the medication. The medication should still work whether I'm, you know, 70 pounds or 170 pounds. But they did want me to gain some weight before doing the injections. So it took me, I think, at least a month or two to gain the weight I needed to. I was extremely determined to do that, so I went pretty gung-ho at it. And once I had gained the weight, we decided to start injections, which is exactly what it is. I had to give myself shots. So I will maybe flash the names of the medication across the screen, but I don't really think it's that relevant. It's basically just a hormone that I would have to inject into my stomach twice a day. While I was also taking a couple pills, which once again, I don't remember all the names. Maybe I should have paid more attention to that. But basically, I was going to be injecting hormones into my stomach and then taking some orally by mouth. So this is what the little things would come in. This was called Repronex, for those of you that do want to know. And you would have to mix the liquid with the powder and draw it up in this needle. Now this needle was very small, but giving yourself a shot is still very difficult. So I don't know if you can even see how little, can't really see, but it's only about that long. So very tiny little needle. There's a little bit better view. And I would have to inject this into my stomach twice a day. The first one was really, really hard to do. I counted to 3 like 20 times, but I ended up getting pretty good at it. And what this was supposed to do was stimulate my ovaries to make me produce eggs, and then I would take what they call a trigger shot, which is another shot, and that would make me ovulate and drop the egg, and then we could do what we need to do to make a baby, and voila. So I said, that sounds great. This is gonna work. And unfortunately, it didn't. So what I was doing, I was doing the shots. I would have to go in for blood work and ultrasounds quite frequently. They would measure the eggs that were being stimulated, and what happened with me was I was being overstimulated. So typically you want to have 1 egg, which means 1 baby. I was having about 20 plus. So that would mean the potential of 20 plus babies, which is not good. So they ended up canceling my cycle. They said, you're at too high risk. We're not going to give you the trigger shot. Do not have intercourse. And that was very devastating to hear, because here I had been taking these shots for a month thinking it was going to work. And then they said, nope, I'm not going to do it. So we tried that 3 more times. They were altering the medication and just trying to get the right amount to get me to produce just 1 good egg, and canceled cycle after canceled cycle. I was getting very discouraged. I was again feeling like physical crap, feeling like emotional crap. And on the, I believe, 4th cycle, again, I was way too stimulated. I had, I think, 24 eggs in there, which was too many. And they said, but we're gonna try something if you're up for it. And we will go in, basically pop all of the eggs except for 1. And then you can take your trigger shot, ovulate, do your thing, and hopefully get pregnant. So I had to have this basically surgery done where I had to go in. I was put to sleep, the whole shebang. It was extremely painful when I woke up, lots of cramping and pain, but I thought, you know what, it's gonna be worth it, it's gonna work. It did not work. So I was feeling extremely, extremely devastated at this point. I was getting quite depressed. I think I put on a decent front for most people, at work and that sort of thing. Even through YouTube, you probably couldn't tell. But at home, when I was with Jim or with family, I was extremely, extremely depressed. Just nothing made me happy. This was all I wanted. It wasn't working. I was going through so much, giving myself shots, taking these pills, having surgeries, and nothing was working. Meanwhile, everybody else, it seemed like, was getting pregnant. I had friends getting pregnant and family members getting pregnant. I'm going to baby showers, and it was really, really hard for me to go through that. I'd have a friend say, oh, we're gonna try to have a second baby, and then a month later, she was pregnant. It was just like, why can't I do this? Why is it not working for me? Or I'd had a friend get pregnant with twins, and I was just, happy for them, but it was hard to be happy going through what I was going through. And we didn't tell very many people. I did tell my parents and a couple very close friends, but that was about all that knew. So it really felt like I was going through it alone. And poor Jim couldn't really do anything. He did what he could to be there for me, but obviously he couldn't take the shots. He couldn't feel like crap, and I could tell it was really hard for him too. So after that, we decided that our last option pretty much was IVF, which is in vitro fertilization, where they take my egg and they take Jim's sperm, they put it together in a little petri dish, and then they put it up into your uterus. So obviously this was not the ideal situation. You want to be able to have a baby the way God and nature intended it, but we had pretty much accepted the fact that that wasn't going to happen for us. So at this point, it had been almost probably almost 8 months later, actually, because with the injections, it wasn't just a month cycle. It was like longer than a month. So we're kind of going on 2 years now. And during the injections, I did lose some weight. I was getting depressed. When I'm depressed, I don't like to eat. So I pretty much had lost all of the weight and then some that I had gained in order to do the injections. So once again, the doctor said you need to be at a certain weight, and it took me again about 2 months to get to that weight. So I remember actually leaving the doctor's office that day when she said, you need to gain X amount of pounds, and I went to the store and bought all the Pop-Tarts, all the flavors, and just like ate them for 2 months straight. And it was kind of fun, but yeah, that's what I did. So I gained the weight and we were ready to start IVF. And first of all, IVF is not cheap by any means. I'm talking thousands of dollars. Now, luckily we had insurance, or have insurance, that covered a significant portion of it, but that's just a once in a lifetime coverage. So if we ever want to do it again, it's going to be all out of pocket. So insurance paid for some, and we paid for multiple thousands of dollars out of pocket, and decided this is what we need to do because I want to have a baby. And Jim felt the same way. So once again, to do IVF, I had to do injections. This time it was, I believe, 2 or 3 a day, again with the pills, different medications. One of the medications was the same. Again, the names aren't really important. They are basically just hormones. This time they did want me to be very stimulated to get lots of eggs, because the more eggs they could get, the more embryos they could make, and the more chances we would have to try this. So again, I was taking the shots, so I would do one of these shots a day, just a small little one. And then I would also have this kind of fun one. This was called Follistim, and it was to stimulate your follicles, just like it suggests. And this one was actually kind of cool. It just had a small needle that screwed on to the top, and the medication would go inside here. And then, I don't know if you can see, this was also a very tiny needle, but this one was kind of cool because you would just dial up however much medication you needed, and then jab it in your stomach, and then just click it like that, and it would be like a pen, and it was a lot easier. I just squirted medication everywhere. And it was a lot easier to give that to myself rather than this shot where I had to draw it back, and it was just awkward. So I was doing that. I was doing the other shot into my belly along with some other oral medications, and I was going in every other day for blood work and ultrasound so they could see again if everything was being stimulated the way it was supposed to be. And when I got at the right measurements, they would then go in and retrieve the eggs. So they got me to where I wanted to be. I was extremely stimulated, which was a good thing, but it made me feel not good because I was, my stomach felt huge. There was all these eggs in there. I believe they got 25-ish. I don't remember the exact number, but for them to retrieve the eggs, I was again put to sleep, and they basically went in there and took them out. And when I woke up from that surgery too, I was in a lot of pain. Lots and lots of pain. I mean, I was shivering, I was shaking, I was not feeling very good. But I was able to just go home and rest. And then I forget how long I had to wait. I think we had to wait about 2 months just because of the way they did their scheduling and whatnot. We couldn't get right into the next transfer. So we had to wait about 2 months, which was excruciating, awful waiting time because I felt like we weren't doing anything. We couldn't do anything. We just had to wait. But November came, and then we were able to do the transfer. So getting ready for the transfer, again, I had to do some shots and some medications. And I had to take a medication called, let me think of the name real quick, progesterone. And progesterone was not fun. Again, I don't know exactly what it did, but it was supposed to help with the transfer and keeping the pregnancy. And it came in a vial like this, but it was in oil, so very thick and hard to inject. And this needle was quite scary. So this one was going to be injected into kind of my butt, not really, a little bit high, kind of like where like your love handle would be on the back part. So kind of near your butt back area. And this was the needle to draw up the medicine. So pretty big. And then to inject it, I would have this needle, which isn't quite as long, but you probably can't tell, but it is very, very thick for a needle because of the oil. It was hard to get through. So this had to go into my backside, which I didn't have much fat to deal with. And Jim had to give it to me. It was extremely painful, but we had to do that like 2 weeks leading up to the transfer. I had the transfer, which was no big deal. That was an awake procedure. They just went up there and basically stuck that embryo into my uterus. And we did only transfer one. I was at high risk for lots of things, so they didn't want to put any more than one in. You know, a lot of people will put 2, 3, even 4 embryos in there, but that's risking 2, 3, 4 babies. So they really didn't want to risk that at all, and they just decided to do one. So just one little embryo up there. And then for 2 weeks, I had to continue the big progesterone shots, which were starting to get extremely painful, and my backside was really hurting, but I was trying to be as hopeful as possible. And I will say that at this point, I didn't have much hope at all because I have been so disappointed for the past about 2.5 years now. And I wasn't hopeful. I said, I don't want to get my hopes up. I don't want to get more disappointed. I was pretty much set on this isn't going to work. But we had the 2-week wait period, and then I had to go in for blood work where they were going to tell me if I was pregnant or not, because they can tell by blood work earlier than they can with just a pregnancy test at home. So the night before I went in to get my blood work done to find out if I was pregnant, my Nana passed away. And that was just devastating to me. So here I am knowing that I'm going in the morning to find out if I'm pregnant. I'm thinking I'm not. I don't feel pregnant. I'm not feeling hopeful. My Nana just passed away, so I'm extremely upset about that. And I was just in an awful, awful state. So I go in for the blood work. I come home. I basically just pass out from exhaustion, from mental, physical, just feeling a wreck, and wait for the doctor to call and tell me my results. So about 2 hours later, I get a phone call, and the nurse tells me that the test was positive. And I was just in disbelief. I think I asked her 10 times, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? And I called Jim because he wasn't home, and he rushed home, and we were so excited. And we went out and about for the day and just were so happy. Now, I was still upset because my Nana had just passed away, but I felt like it was almost kind of meant to be. You know, one life ended, another one started. I know that's kind of cliche, but that's kind of how I think about it. And we went and we got a cake that said we're pregnant, and took it to my parents because obviously my mom was very upset. Her mom had just passed away, and it was just so nice to have this great news after almost 3 years of trying and being disappointed, and it had finally worked. So we did just the 1 round of IVF with 1 embryo, and now we have 1 baby growing in there, and it was all worth it. You know, when I look back at what I went through and how I felt physically, mentally, I mean, it was very, very tough. It was probably the hardest thing I went through, probably even harder than the eating disorder treatment that I went through. But I would do it all again. I would do 20 shots a day. I would keep doing the shots now if I had to. I would take all the pills and feel like crap, and it would all be worth it. So that's kind of my little story in a nutshell, I guess. And like I said, I know a lot of you aren't going to relate to that at all, but if you are going through it, all I can say is try to stay positive. I know it's hard. Just try to stay positive and try to still enjoy your life while you're going through it. That's something that I didn't do very well. I wasn't able to enjoy anything because all my focus was going on this, and I didn't want to go to the movies. I didn't want to go for a walk. I didn't enjoy anything because I was just miserable that I couldn't have this or have this work. But like I said, it was all worth it, and you know, will we go through it again to have baby number 2? I don't know. We'll kind of cross that bridge when we get there, but for now we're just beyond ecstatic about having the 1 and can't wait until it's actually here. But that's it. So if you guys have any questions at all, please do not hesitate. Either comment down below, or if you'd rather just email me your questions, that's fine too. I am trying to be very open about it. This video is kind of a coming out as well because a lot of our friends and family don't know that we did IVF. They just assume we got pregnant the way most people get pregnant, but I guess they'll find out now. So I do want to kind of be open about it, and it's not something to be ashamed of. You know, for a while I did feel like that, like, you know, what's wrong with me? Why can't I get pregnant when I'm a woman and I should be able to do that? But, you know, I just decided that it doesn't matter how I got pregnant, but that I am, and that we're still gonna have a wonderful little baby, and I'm super excited. So thanks for watching if you made it through the whole video, and hopefully it was able to help someone, maybe give you hope or let you know what to expect if you are going to go through this all. And just because this is what I had to go through doesn't mean that it's what you'll have to go through. You know, maybe the Clomid will work for you. Maybe this will, you know, it's hard to say. But that was my journey, and it ended in a very, very wonderful way. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.